mate.
But
It's how
especially when you were
you're,
new in the job, I'm new to driving. You were just a little excited and got a little carried away.
actually,
Carried away.
I don't know if you can. You might have to edit this little bit out, but
5 minutes later.
and you know, I'm a fresh guy, never been on the railway, never worked with guys like this before, and yeah, that was my introduction. Welcome to the railway.
Yeah, you're probably right, mate. That probably one won't make it to air, but what an hilarious story.
I don't know what to say about that. I mean, that's funny, but I do not think that's going to make the cut.
No, probably not. That's one of the ones that you put in the book that's written about drivers' tales on the rails when you've retired and gone, mate, you know. But he sounds like a dude I met in the Victorian Railways, Whiskey Taylor. And he had that name because back in the same days, he'd have a few whiskies and they got away with things like that back then. But the story going around, I heard it from a lot of drivers, is that the old crossing gates, you had the crossing gate keeper, shut the gates. Well, Whiskey had run through a couple of them, mate. He said the gates were shut and they're meant to be open. He said, too bad. So he opened them straight through on the passenger train, mate. He ended up on the shunt engines until he retired. They ended up taking him off the road. And it's a bit sad because one of my mates in Mile End, great guy, really, really kind driver. But he was, had a little bit of he never drank on the job, but he was a drinker at home, and he never came to work drunk. But because someone who eats garlic a lot, they don't have to eat it. You can smell it on them. So the same with him. Even if he hadn't had a drink for 12 hours, you could still smell it in his skin, But he never had any major accidents or anything. He was always good. But then one day, the icing on the cake, he was in the shunt yard, and he must have had a bit of a heavy night. I wasn't with him this day. And he came off the road, the engine slipped off, don't know what happened. But he's trying to reverse it, and he's got it full open on the 500, trying to move it, and they're going, stop, and he panicked, and that was it for him, mate. I think, if I'm correct, he got retired or he finished up then. It was but it's sad because there's such a lot of good drivers back then that just had personal issues going on outside, I guess, like a lot of us do,
Yeah.
But you have talking about outside interests before we finish for today. You're into motorbikes and building. So now I sort of understand why you build motorcycles because of your fitter and turner experience, which I didn't realise. So that would have definitely helped in doing what you do outside the job, yeah?
Yeah, that's sort of, and it's a fairly big interest too. That's my wind down. So, if I come home from work after, a shitty day driving, 12-hour shift, that's my wind down. I'll come home. I don't drink. I don't, don't do all the fun things, but I sort of come home and I'll work on the bikes and get them ready. So
what's
I've got a few.
Bike, mate?
Bonneville 750 Triumph.
See, they're the ones I used to draw when I was in high school. When I was 12, 13, I started having this thing about bikes, like motorcycles. And I think back now, when I had my Malvern Star, my Malvern Star bicycle, I used to have ape hangers on it, right? And it wasn't, I just thinking a couple of days ago, I thought, it was already implanted in me. Even to become an actor was implanted in there somewhere, but it didn't show itself for many years later, to when I was 38, actually, after my pro wrestling days. But I always look back and went, it was always there because my dad always took me to pantomimes, took me to theatre. I watched them filming our local Coxo homicide when I was about 11, 12 years old. I watched them do it in the street. And believe it or not, I followed them to shoot the next scene because I said to my auntie Jean, who, God bless, is still alive to this day. She's well up near her 90s, my dad's sister. And she drove me in a little mini Miner to watch the rest of the scene being shot. And she went home, and back in the day, I'd walk home, who cares? No one worried about it. but it got really late and dark, and I went, I'm not walking home in the dark. So I went up to Leonard Teal and forget the other actors' names, all three of them, the major stars of Homicide. And I just walked up and said, hey, guys, how you going? I've been watching your film all day, but I got to get home. Do you reckon you can give me a lift home? And they did. They put me in the Studebaker police car they used on the show and drove me home. They dropped me off at the top of my street, and my dad happened to be just finishing up cleaning his car because he was always washing the car on Sunday. And he just happened to look up the street and saw the Studebaker, the blue cop car with the light on top, pull away. And it's like in a movie. As it pulled away, here's me. And when I walked down the street, because I was in trouble from day one when I was born, he's going, what now? I said, nothing. They just gave me a lift home. He goes, who gave you a lift home? I said, them. He goes, they're police officers. I go, no, they're Homicide, Dad. He goes, Homicide? I went, no, I mean the TV show. He's thinking Homicide. What the hell? My acting career was all ready to start, and my love of bikes started because Bonneville 500s, I used to draw pictures of them. So there's always something in you that will reveal itself somewhere later in life,
Yeah, that's where I'm sort of starting to head with now, like with the doco and a couple other bits and pieces that I'm putting together, and bit of a podcast with a few people. So,
oh, good, man. That's great.
And yeah, Matty, I'm building a bike for Matty, the screenwriter.
Yes,
he's another train driver as well. So
yeah, we're trying to get Matty on. He said he's on early shifts all week, and just letting people know this will be really interesting for any of you in the acting world. You see, this is part of when you talk to people, you meet people, you're not shy. You never know where you're going to meet people. Now, through me and Caden just out filming trains and him posting them is how I met Shane. How I met Doug was through coaching his brother many years ago. And we've all created amazing things. And Shane introduced me to Matt Keegan, who has written probably nearly 7 or 8 film scripts in his spare time when he's not driving. And he actually said, Andy, there's a couple of good roles in some of the films. But I said, that's great, man. If it happens, it happens. But it's just good to know you. But he just said the other day, I can't say too much, and you probably know anyway, that producers have grabbed one of his films and said, dude, we're going to bring this to life. And I went, how cool is that? Like, he's going to get one of his scripts produced. So that would be so awesome. No,
that's, he's just got that mind where, where he wants to go down that path. And I'm more of a realist, where I want to go down the documentary sort of path. Yeah. And
Hey, can I jump in there? What's your doco about, mate? What I think you've told me, but I forget.
Yeah, it's the road goes on, and it's about sort of motorcycling and mental health.
Cool.
And what we do to combat sort of bad mental health, and how we can go for a ride. Once you go for a ride, all the shit floats off your shoulders.
That's really awesome. We'll have to get you on the Relentless and Unstoppable series, because we've got, there's a lot of viewers who watch that. We do a lot of talks on mental health. We do a lot of talks about anything. Anyone who's had an amazing, relentless lifestyle, whether it be Janine Shepherd, who was an ex-Olympic champion, was training for the Winter Olympics many, many years ago and got hit by a truck while she was riding her bicycle, and she became a pilot, stunt pilot, pilot trainer. Was a paraplegic. At one stage she was walking. I think she still can get around now. She's a TED speaker. So we'd love to get you on and talk about the mental health journey on another platform,
Yeah. And then, that's how another good mate of mine, Sean, he was actually sort of telling me about a great mate, Andy, that he had, and we're sort of talking about each other. And I said, I think I know Andy already, mate. And, yeah. It's just funny how everything sort of comes about.
I didn't know you knew Sean, because he's in my current acting class. We're in our last week of it now, and Sean's awesome. For all the Australians out there, me and Sean met on Housos and Fat Pizza, and we become great friends. And it's just such a small world, isn't it? Who would have ever thought, mate? Just being the love of trains brought people together, And this was Doug's idea, not mine. He said, Andy, you should do this thing about trains and interview drivers. And I went, Oh yeah, what a great idea. So sorry, Doug, you're in the silence there. Watch out, there's a train behind you, mate. I'd step back a little bit. So,
Oh. I missed filming it.
When I had so I'd done a bit of filming a few years ago with Sean. There was him and a fair few of the Fat Pizza crew, where we done a couple of film clips.
Awesome!
And that's how we sort of come about. And that Fat Pizza crew, they sort of certainly bring a lot of people together.
Oh, dude, like, and we're getting off track a little bit. Getting off track a little bit, going into a sighting. But yeah, I got on Fat Pizza. For those Australian people would know, my character was Davo's dad, and I got on the show probably 6 or 7 times. I love Paulie. And he actually invited me back to Australia to be on the next Houses, I think, but COVID messed that up. Thank you.
Yeah.
But that's okay. We'll get together again. But look, mate, this is really cool. I know we're going to talk again, but it's so great to hear your side of being a driver who's still driving, and your journey of coming from a fitter and turner to a loco driver to a trainer to someone who's making a documentary now on motorcycles and mental health. And one thing I've got to ask you, you do have a bit of a dream there to get to Canada. So if anyone in Canada is listening, you're only just across the border from where I am. Shane wants to get up there and would love to be a driver up there. Is that right, mate? Before
I wouldn't mind doing that. Wouldn't mind doing that before I finish up. I don't know when I will finish up, but I suppose the time will tell me when the time's right. You done what, 14 years? I might try and go for the 14 or 15.
Yeah, and you never know, mate. Like you've got some healthy interests outside, so some people. I love the railways, but it was my time to go. Like I couldn't stay there any longer. I got pulled out, and I'm really glad I did, because my life has just been it's been ups and downs, a lot of ups and downs, and end up being a coach and mentor to people. And it's never about, I say it honestly, it's never about the money. Like I don't do coaching and mentor to be rich. I do it to enrich myself and people like Doug, who know his story. Like this kid here, man, his journey, I tease him a lot, but he teases me back now. He's got the Aussie sense of humor going. But his journey, what he's created is amazing. I love it. And his journey of being a young kid who was so depressed when I met him. He's dealing with high functioning autism, and he was 300 plus pounds, and now down to 200 pound. He's training, fitness, running, hiking. He went in a 5-mile run a few months ago, and he's created all these channels and got his own little business going with logo designs and websites. And just so, to me, it's just like, I love it. I just love hearing people's journeys and stories and the different things that keeps them going,
Yeah, that's grass, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And thanks to Doug, he brought all this together, which has helped me connect up with guys I haven't spoken to for probably 35 years, maybe even longer. Guys from the railways, and I wasn't sure if they'd be happy to be on. Some don't want to, it's okay. But most of all said, yeah, this is cool. And it's just talking about your journey in the rail. Like the first guy we had, I think do you know Anthony, the XPT driver?
I think I might have met him once or twice, but
you must have, because he's up that way and he's on the XPT all the time, and he started in Adelaide. But man, he had 3 generations or something, I think. Is that right, Doug? And his family in the railways, which is awesome. Like that's just a whole family deal.
I think he said that. Yeah.
His dad, his grandfather, and someone else. Yep. It's like, it's pretty cool, man. Because the railways is special. Even if you do leave it, it's something you can't explain to people. Like it's like you just said before, Shane, the job's not what it used to be. Like I can still walk into a rail yard or drive here in LA. I go past rail yards. I can't not look. I look over as I'm on the freeway on the 5 heading south, and there's this massive rail yard with all the lights, and it's that environment. Like even even if I hated night shift, there was something special about being in those yards at night time and shunting and the comradeship we all had with shunters, drivers, guards, and all that. It was special, really was.
Yeah, no, it's so my grandfather, he was a railway man as well.
Oh, wow.
He was a fettler on the flying gang, and my dad, he was on the railway for a while as well.
Oh, sheesh, man. So you're the same. You've got a great rail history.
Yeah, and then
next time.
And then we all worked in the same Cardiff workshops, sort of together. My dad was in the blacksmith shop. Until he sort of left there in the early 80s. And, yeah.
So he was doing all the blacksmithing. He would have been a bit of a strong guy, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he was doing the dog spikes and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And rail clips and all that sort of thing. He started out as a shop boy there.
Wow.
15 years old.
When I used to sit on the locos when it was 100 and something degrees in summer, and we used to go past the gangers, or you'd be doing a ballast train, dropping ballast on the track, and you watching these guys back in the day, one on either side, bang, bang, hammering those dog spikes in, no machines, all sledgehammers. I go, I am so glad I'm a lazy soul that wants to sit on my ass on the locomotive, because there's no way I could be doing what they were tough guys, like tough guys.
Yeah.
And I don't mean fighting. They were just tough, man, to be out in that weather and smashing things. And back in the days of the steam days in America, when they're laying, tracks across the country in Australia, like those gangers and fettlers, man, boy, oh boy, hard men.
Very hard, yeah. Good coordination.
Well, yeah, when you look at what they did, like for, like I'll just go past them. I said to my driver, these guys, man, I said, who'd want a job like that, especially in summer, or then winter, forget that. We just wound the window up, you didn't even want to stick your head out to watch the shunters signal. You sort of stick your head out a bit and go, yeah, back. Yeah, forward. I don't think they liked us a lot, actually, sometimes, the shunters and guards. I think they thought you stuck up buggers you are.
There's always been that thing between the guards and the drivers.
Always, mate, always. But we love you. Don't worry, we love you. If you're listening, we love you. Mm-hmm. All right, mate. Well, thanks, Shane. Awesome. Thanks, Dougie, for arranging all this. And we'll definitely chat to you again, mate, because there's a lot more to talk about. But thanks. I know you've been working all through the night. It is, what time is it in Australia there now for you?
12:05.
12:05 at lunchtime. And you started work last night at 10:55 p.m.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Well, I just felt like I need a little nap thinking about that. Well, thanks, Shane. Really appreciate it, mate.
No worries. You have an awesome evening.
Yeah, thanks, mate. And Dougie?
No worries. Thanks for the chat
out, bro.
So that's all, everybody, from Tales from the Rails. I want to thank Shane for appearing on the channel. Thanks to you, Andy, for being a good coach and mentor. And next week, we have another episode of Tales from the Rails. Stay tuned.